So, Turkey has this huge, ambitious plan to totally transform its medical tech industry. The goal? To stop relying so much on foreign imports. But here's the big question. Is this bold strategy actually going to work, or is it just wishful thinking? Let's get into it. Everything really starts with this one number, 78%. That's how much of Turkey's medical device market is made up of imports. Just think about that. Almost everything is being shipped in from somewhere else. And wow, this chart really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? That giant blue bar for imports just completely dwarfs the little one for domestic production. We're talking about a situation where maybe 3 out of every 4 medical devices you'd find in a Turkish hospital came from another country. This isn't just an imbalance, it's a total domination by outside players. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First up, the diagnosis, where we'll dig into that 78% number. Then we'll look at the prescription, the government's new plan to fix things. After that, we'll check out the fast track, which is a really clever tool they've introduced. Then comes the reality check, where we face a tough 3-layer wall. And finally, we'll wrap up with the prognosis, pitting the plan against the reality. Okay, let's dive right into our first section, the diagnosis. Because that 78% figure, it's more than just a number on a spreadsheet. It represents a major strategic vulnerability. So what's really going on here? So this table really helps us zoom in on the problem. You can see the medical device market is huge, over $3 billion. Now, pharmaceuticals are doing a bit better. That dependency is down at 42%. But look at high-tech biotech. The dependency there is described as much deeper. We're talking about near total reliance on foreign tech in the most advanced fields. Okay, so why is this such a big deal right now? Well, because the demand for healthcare is just exploding. I mean, look at this. The population over 65 has nearly doubled in just 4 years. People are going to the doctor more than ever before, and chronic diseases are becoming much more common. When demand is skyrocketing like this, being dependent on imports becomes a much, much bigger risk. All right, we've diagnosed the problem. So what's the prescription? This is where Turkey's Health Institute's presidency, or TÜSEB, comes into the picture. They've cooked up a whole new strategy designed to turn this ship around. You know, for the longest time, the go-to model for innovation was this thing called the triple helix. It seems pretty straightforward, right? You get the universities, who have the knowledge, the government, which sets the policy, and industry, which does the actual production. You put them all together, and boom, innovation. But as it turns out, it's not quite that simple. It just wasn't enough. And this is where the new plan gets really smart. TÜSEB basically said, okay, what are we missing? And they added 2 absolutely vital new ingredients to the mix. Entrepreneurs, the people with the disruptive new ideas, and capital, the investment needed to actually build those ideas. So now you have this quintuple helix, a much more complete ecosystem that's actually built for success. So, you've got this great new model, but how do you solve the single biggest problem for any local startup? Actually getting your product into the market. Well, they came up with a pretty clever tool for that, something they call the fast track. It's officially called the 3E procurement exemption, but you can just think of it as a VIP lane for locally made products. The flow is incredibly simple. First, a project gets the stamp of approval from TÜSEB. Then, the innovative product gets developed. And here's the magic part. Public hospitals can then buy it directly, no questions asked. It lets them completely skip the bureaucratic nightmare of standard tenders. It's a direct solution to that critical first sale hurdle. Plans, strategies, clever tools. On paper, it all looks fantastic, doesn't it? But now it's time for a reality check. We need to talk about what's actually happening on the ground and what the people in the industry are saying. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. A representative from the industry put it this bluntly. We don't have a production problem, we have a sales problem. In other words, Turkish companies can make great stuff. The problem is they can't sell it. And that sales problem is basically a 3-layer wall. First, you've got intense price pressure. Public tenders are almost always won by the lowest bidder. So why would a local company invest a ton in R&D to make a better product if they know they'll just lose to a cheaper import? Second, there's resistance from doctors. And you can kind of see their point, right? They've spent their entire careers using trusted foreign brands. Switching to a new, unproven domestic device is a big ask when a patient's health is at stake. And the third layer is what you could call the ghosts of the past. There have been failed projects before, like an attempt to build a domestic MRI back in the 90s that went nowhere. That kind of history creates a deep-seated skepticism that's really hard to shake. And if you need any more proof of how serious this is, listen to this feedback from foreign investors. They've basically said, look, with the way the Ministry of Health buys things right now, if we put our money into Turkey, we are going to lose it. That is a brutal assessment. It shows the current system isn't just hurting local companies, it's actively scaring away foreign investment too. So that brings us to the big picture, the prognosis. On one hand, you have a really smart, ambitious plan. And on the other, you have a very harsh, difficult reality. The whole game now is about bridging that massive gap. So let's just lay it all out, side by side. The plan calls for strategic funding, a connected ecosystem, and a fast track to the market. But the reality on the ground is a purchasing system obsessed with the lowest price, market barriers that are incredibly hard to break through, and a deep, lingering distrust of anything new and local. These are two powerful competing forces. And that leaves us with the big, unanswered question. Can a fantastic plan on paper really overcome these tough, entrenched obstacles on the ground? Honestly, the future of Turkey's medical tech sector depends entirely on the answer. It's a high-stakes battle, and it's definitely one to watch.